Hey everybody, welcome back to Side Goggling Guns. Got a little project here I'm working on. What I've got in front of me is a CETME. This one's built by Century Arms. This is a C308 Sporter rifle. It's chambered in 308 7.62 NATO. It's very, very similar, if not downright identical, to the H&K G3. Has some slight differences, but I've actually put on this one. It came with black polymer furniture. I've put on the G3 wood stock and front handguard. This particular gun, since it is a Century, has a few differences beyond that. The sight back here is not an H&K sight. That's the CETME sight. It's well, it's kind of hard. There we go. When it flips around, it's like 1 to 400 yards. This particular one also has a Picatinny rail welded onto the top of the receiver here. That's nice. You know, you can get, for ones that don't have that, you can get claw mounts for scopes and whatnot, but that makes it pretty easy. Anyway, the only thing that I really don't care for about this gun is the trigger housing. The polymer never really looked right to me. The grip is also very skinny, and I have big kind of, chunky hands. So I wanted to put a different trigger guard on it, and that's actually what we've got here. This is a CETME trigger guard. You can get H&K G3s. They're commonly known as SEF trigger guards for the positions. You can get them that are already modified to fit the gun, usually on like RTG parts or something like that. Unfortunately, I've been looking for the better part of a year now, and they've been out of stock the whole time. So I was at a gun show, saw this for like $7. Figured I'd go ahead and grab it and see if I can make it fit this. It doesn't do anything other than look different and feel a little different. You can get these with the full auto trigger pack still in them. Obviously mine does not have that, and even if you got one with a full auto trigger pack, it's not an NFA item because it doesn't go right onto the gun, and there's some other things that are needed anyway, so we're not even going to get into that discussion. This is purely for putting a CETME sheet metal stamped lower onto your C308 Sporter rifle. We're going to take the semi-auto trigger pack that's in here out and put it in there. So to get started, let's go ahead and take this trigger guard or trigger housing off, see how it's set up, and take some measurements and see kind of ballpark what we're going to have to do here. All right, so pardon the production quality, tripod legs, forgotten weapons, I am not. So let's actually start with the discussion about what's different between these two. So I'm not going to go through disassembly. That's super easy. Plenty of videos out there for that already. They look fairly similar as you kind of flip them around and look at them a bit. You'll notice that if we line this up, this one has a hole. The original one has a hole, where this one just has kind of like a, half of a circle that goes over the pin. That's no big deal. If I pull the trigger pack out, rotate the safety up, pull the safety out, and reach in here. There we go. And there's a couple pins in here that can fall out, so don't let those drop. This is the actual trigger pack, semi-auto. Trigger pack drops right in. The only issue is, and the safety lever goes in as well. The only issue here is because the side wall of the polymer trigger pack is actually considerably thicker. The safety lever is just very loose. When you push in on it, we're in semi-auto fire right now. If I push in on it with my thumb, it actually doesn't want to fire. If I kind of if I push it out a little bit with this and pull it, then it'll fire. That's obviously what we want. So I think what I'm going to do is make a little bushing to go right in this area and kind of pull this out a little bit, because that key right there, that really needs to ride on the inside of the trigger pack right there to make sure everything else works. So we'll deal with that. The other thing to notice, and this is actually where the lion's share of the work is going to happen. Let me pop the trigger pack out. The main difference here is in the front. So you notice this semi-auto trigger pack, this is what's called the shelf, and that's fairly low. There's a lot of space in here. The other thing is the pins, or the ears on the semi-auto pack are significantly wider than the ears on the metal trigger pack. So the way this works, the semi-auto trigger pack, is on the lower part of the receiver. You see there's this little notch. That notch interfaces with that rectangular hole there, and it just kind of slides in. Obviously there's a pin that holds it on the back, but in the front it's just captured by that. The metal trigger pack, it won't go on. You know, it fits in the back, it's the right width in the back, but there's going to be quite a bit of trimming involved here. I think I might wind up having to cut these ears off altogether. So what we're going to do is take some measurements off of this existing ear, because I don't want to modify the receiver, or I guess the upper receiver, because I may want to go back to this at some point. So let's take some measurements off of that and see how much we have to play with on the metal trigger pack and go from there. All right, so I've got my super duper extra precision, highly calibrated Harbor Freight calipers here. If I measure this shelf, the width of it, I get 23.0 something, 06, 08. I'll hold it down there. What is that? That's 23.02. Just call it 23 millimeters. The width of this, the stamp sheet metal, is conveniently, as you would expect, almost 23 millimeters, about 23.5 millimeters. So a problem arises here because the outer width of this is 25.6. So basically, I'm going to have to cut this down on the inside here. I'm going to have to grind this. See this lip, how this turns? This was bent, and it created the lip here. Basically, this whole lip here has to go, leaving just the outside, and it'll just be, basically squared off like this all the way around. So we're going to get rid of right here, boop, that thickness on both sides. Really, the right way to do this would be with a mill, but I don't have a mill. I've got an angle grinder. So we're going to go over the bench, put this thing in the vise, and I'm going to screw my mouth all up and see if I can get through this without messing it up. But like I said, this whole part was $7, so if I screw it up, I'm not going to be too mad. The other thing that we're going to have to do is actually in the front here. Looks like, I don't know if that's going to interfere with anything or not. It doesn't look like it, just by glancing at the receiver, but we'll find out. I may have to cut that part out as well. I'm going to try, I'm actually going to try and cut with a grinder. I'm going to try and, no, I should probably leave that. Yeah, I should probably leave that. I may nick it with a grinder or whatever. Or, what do we think? I don't know. I may wind up leaving it. I may wind up cutting it out. We'll just have to see. But first order of business is to try and grind those ears. All right, here we go. Safety third. I guess it would make sense to use a grinding disc instead of a cutting disc, huh? Come on, bastard. There we go. All right. All right, we're getting close. I got about 21 and a half millimeters, give or take. Going in backwards with the grinder on this side actually worked a lot better. So we're going to flip it over try that out on the other side. Alright, go 23 and change, 23.1, 23.2. So we'll take this back over to the rifle and see how it fits. Alright, so after our first round of grinding, let's see how this fits on here, if it fits. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. The lower receiver, should sit right there. We've got our ears on either side of the shelf there, and I can kind of pivot it around. So we're about right. I've got some more grinding to do, probably a bit of filing to get this to where it slides all the way up. But I'm going to do that off camera, and I'll bring it back over here when I'm ready. All right, so you can see I did a little bit more cutting on it. Actually, I took out, you'll notice that the little piece of metal that was in the front, I went and cut that whole thing out. It was kind of difficult to work around it, so I just took my angle grinder, the cutting blade, not the grinding blade, just took it in this direction, made a nice clean cut, so it's flush with the with the sheet metal there. I got rid of that raised lip. I've still got a little bit there, a little bit there. I'll grind that out. But the important takeaway from this is that the housing, the lower rather, now fits on here. So a couple things I'm not super thrilled about. Actually, if I position this back, I think the fit of this needs to be pretty accurate. And I'm using this rear pin here to kind of align everything. I think that's right. I think that's pretty much where that needs to be. I'm going to put the trigger group in here and see if I can just dry fire it. Obviously, I haven't put the shelf in the front here to interface, but we can probably make it work good enough for 1 or 2 dry fires. Be right back. All right, so it's cocked. I'm in fire. Let's see. All right, and you have to pardon the shakiness here. I'm doing this literally on a card table. Cocked. Another dry fire. Okay, I'm actually going to push the trigger pack forward. I guess that's about as far as it will go. Cock it. See if we get another dry fire. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to have to do something about this gap. I'm not real happy with that. Maybe one of the clipped and pinned lowers wouldn't have that problem. I don't know. I may just tack on a little sheet metal. We'll see. But that appears to work. We still got the. Oh, actually, now that it's in the gun, the safety actually seems to work. Only after the hammer's fired. If the hammer's not fired, it's still floppy. But if I fire it, it was a little bit snug. Anyway, so we still got to do with that too. But yeah, we're getting there. Progress. All right, before we jump back over to the bench, I'll just kind of illustrate to you what I'm doing. So I know the bottom of this shelf here, I need to know that distance kind of to the floor. So that is 7.85 millimeters. Yeah, 7.85, somewhere in there. So basically what I'm going to do, obviously not with the trigger pack in here because I don't want to weld the trigger pack in, and this little piece of steel is a little bit small. I'll just find a piece of scrap and kind of shape it. But I'm going to weld this in right there, right about that much space in there. So that's about where that piece is going to sit. I'm going to leave the trigger pack in the housing just for the first couple tack welds to make sure I get everything kind of positioned right. But yeah, I'm going to find some scrap steel and get the shape in there. All right, so I've got this set up with a magnet pretty much where I want it. It's about 7.65-ish or so millimeters, just a piece of scrap steel. I'm going to go give it a couple tack welds we'll bring it back and see how it fits. All right, let's burn through this thing. That's not great. Just realized that I'm adding material back where it needs to go away. Ooh. Alright, neither one of those are great, but maybe it'll hold it enough for test fit. Let's see. Alright, so what we've got here is the Mark II shelf that we're going to weld in. Mark I there did not work particularly well. Didn't get a good weld on it, and more importantly, it wasn't where I needed it to be in the trigger housing. And also important, I welded the front, which would have actually interfered with the fitment, up against the shelf there. So we're going to try this again. I've got a better idea on how to set this up this time. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to lay this right here, which is actually where it's going to sit, once it's in the rifle. That's where it needs to be. And we'll turn the receiver, vertical, and then lay that in there. And then I'm going to put the trigger housing on. And everything's going to kind of line up exactly where it needs to be. Then I can take this clamp and pinch the trigger housing right here. And that'll actually squeeze these sides together slightly. Grab this and leave it pretty much where it needs to be. So we'll see how that works. All right, so I got the trigger housing on there. I'll show you what I mean with the shelf. You can see it right there. So right now it's just sitting in there, it's just resting. But that actually gives me the exact right position that I need for that shelf to be in there. So we'll put the clamp on from the outside and see if we can pull it out without messing up. All right, well, it worked. That shelf is exactly where I need it to be. Don't know how well it's held in there, so we're going to move this over to the vise and the welder, and this time I'm going to weld on the back, which may... Oh! All right, another attempt. As I was saying, I don't know how well it's held in there, but this time I did actually manage to... it's hard to see. Managed to scribe a couple small marks there for alignment, so if it pops out on me again, I'll know where to put it. But yeah, so this time I'm going to weld it from the back. That may cause issues with the trigger pack fitment, but I guess we'll see. So back over the bench. Only problem now is I cannot see what I'm welding. More importantly, my torch doesn't fit down in there. Ugh. I don't know, maybe I'll tack it on the corners and then weld it across the front and grind it flat. I don't know, I think I'm gonna try the corners. That is not a pretty weld at all. Great. Oh, I'm getting no gas. Damn it. No wonder. Shit, and I burned through it. My connector for the torch likes to fall out of the welder. Damn it. Well, now I'm screwed up. Maybe it's salvageable. Put a couple more dots on it. Ah, damn it. The connector keeps coming out of the machine, which means no gas, which means this is ugly as sin. Well, I don't have much choice now. Oh, no. Couple more tacks, I guess, on this side. Oh, that's not a tack, that is a glob. Son. This did not go as planned. Probably should have brazed this. If we're being honest with ourselves, really should have brazed it. What's done is done. I'm gonna clean it off. You know what they say, grinder and paint can make a welder what he ain't. So I'm actually kind of come down on the heat a touch. Come on, focus. There. I'm going to come down on the heat a touch. I'm going to try and run a bead down that side. And I guess I might try and do something about this too. I don't know. We'll see what happens. All right. Try and finish this thing off here. Sorry, I know I'm blocking the camera, but gotta do it. That actually looked pretty good. All right, obviously that is a big old glob of weld. I'm gonna have to grind that down quite a bit. Thing up here, I think I need a little more wire speed. Yeah, well, this whole thing might be a bust. Ah. Lord have mercy, that is ugly. I should not have gone down on the heat. Jeez, Lord almighty, that's ugly. Oh well, grinder time. Alright, so after some grinding, that's what we got. I guess in retrospect I could have done a worse job. Do have a problem though. I tried to test fit this before I ground it, or I tried to test fit the trigger group in here rather. Because I'm an idiot and did not oversize the width of the shelf a little bit, I've now pulled the sides together, which means it is very difficult to get the trigger group down in here. If this fits, maybe I'll do some more grinding or something on the inside to make it fit a little bit better. But yeah, I think it's I think it's going to be kind of a semi-permanent install of the trigger group down in there. Well, it fits. Going to be sort of hard to see from this angle. There we go. All right, so you can see the shelf welded in there. See, it's making good contact with that little ledge. So I think we're good to go. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit. All right, so I've been test fitting this thing. The fact that I've pulled the two sides in is one problem. Another problem is the trigger group cannot come quite enough all the way forward in order for the hole in the safety to line up. If I lived in the real world, I would give up right now because this is a $7 part, and I would probably just wait for something decent to come into stock. However, I do not live in the real world, and when I'm working for myself, I value my time at about 17 cents an hour. So I'm going to grind out probably about 3/4 of this shelf, really down to right around in here. That'll actually give the trigger group clearance to come forward a little bit and line up the safety hole there. And it just occurs to me that it probably uses the shelf to prevent it from going all the way forward, so I may have to put a couple dabs of weld in there to, in here to stop the trigger. No, I don't know, we'll see. Anyway, we're going to give this a shot and see how it works. Nope, needs more. Alright, so after that last bit of grinding, the trigger pack now fits in the gun. The shelf is pretty ugly, but it does actually retain the front of the trigger group there, so I'm not really worried about it moving forward. And really, the way it sits in the receiver and the safety lever, I think, really retain it more than anything. So, sort of haven't dealt with the safety yet, but in fire, functions, that moves nice and smooth. If I flip it down to the full auto position, nothing happens. So put it on the safe position, nothing happens. Back to fire. Okay, pretty happy with that. So next up is to deal with the safety, keep it from just flopping around there. Not real sure how I'm going to do that yet. I've got a couple ideas. I don't really have a whole lot of detent there, so I may have to do something about that too. Yeah, stay tuned for that one. All right, so hit on an idea. I didn't, take making the first one, but it's just a washer with basically a keyhole, because it has to fit over that nub. Drops on. It's actually a sound idea. It's a bit ugly, like you can see it from the outside of the gun. I have a feeling if I got the correct CETME safety selector, this wouldn't be an issue. But I don't have it, so I'm just going to try and use this for now. Only issue is this washer's a little thin, so found another washer, similar diameter. Whoop. There we go. Actually, same diameter, almost. It's a hair thicker, so we're going to try that. Perfect. All right, well, we're done, save for maybe a bit of paint cleanup on this. And also, if you remember, there's kind of an open area in front of the trigger. I may beat some sheet metal flat, tack it on here, make it look a little bit better. Anyway, but yeah, we're done. I did run into a bit of an issue when I put the big washer on here. The detent couldn't really reach all the way to this semicircle here and really get in the detent good. So I just put a little tack weld on there to bring the surface up a little bit. I tried to bend it, but it just didn't really work. And it also seems to want to be just a hair higher. So I dimpled the thing there for the side of the trigger housing. So anyway, so this is what you got. And drop our... Oh, I also had to re-weld this. It broke on this side. And this would take significant cleanup before I really call it done. But it's functional now. So pop our trigger pack in there, take our safety selector, pop it in. There we go. All right, so now we've got our safe position all the way at the top. Come down, and it's pretty stiff. That extra weld ball really made a difference. Come down there to our detent, and we've got fire. And you can put it in full auto, but it doesn't do anything. Obviously because I don't have a full auto fire control group in here. But yeah, everything appears to function as designed, pretty reliably. Probably pulled the trigger a couple hundred times by now. So to put it on, it's just the same as the semi-auto. Hammer cocked. Pop the, there we go, get the shelf in there. Oh. Alright, so this time for real. I got the shelf lined up. Goes right on, just like that. Take our buttstock. Pop it in like so. This I'm going to do off camera. You got to kind of wiggle it. Got the first pin in off camera, second pin in there. And really need a better setup here. But cock it. It's on fire. Nice. Very awkward to do at this angle, but seems to work pretty good. You can get like an extra one of these pins and just cut it and like weld the head on to make it look a little nicer. That's the pinned part of the clipped and pinned, and you can actually see the shelf down in there that I welded. But yeah, it fits pretty good. I think it looks a lot better than the polymer handguard, or the polymer trigger pack did. Certainly to me handles better. We'll take it out tomorrow, do a function check, and see how it runs. Here's the other side of the rifle here. This is not really going to win any beauty contests. You know, it would be quote unquote nicer if I had the proper quick and pin receiver, but hey, lesson learned, and all in it cost me $7 and about 3 hours of dicking around in the shop, but I was going to be down here anyway, so that's that.